Okay, testing, 1 2 1 2.
كيفاش ترى لو ديكالاج وبنادم عواج دماغو عاد صايب فيه غير العجاج والحومه مالهاش داتها لاراج لا جونيس فيها سي صوب على ناج الشعب ابري لو شمان من لونفير عاد مكاجي ويقول سي لونفير هي فيك لا فهمتيها تقدر تعيق خروج فهمتك ودور كلامك في راسك راك انت اليوم غير مقليد ويك اب ويك اب ويك اب ويك اب ويك اب فيك سينو راك تبقى مصيد open your mind and give me your hand فاتساك هراوه دونك بلا عداوه
الكلام عليك مكتوب نوض نقص ونشطحوا بوجه ولد الناس عينا من الحشومه تقول عايشين في الكومه شكون اللي جبد لينا قاعد العله هما الحشومه قدام الناس البس لبسه محترمه والطوموبيل وكريديات اخذتونا تعال نبغيك منك من هاد الحضيره منك من هاد الناس غادي نعيقوا للناس غادي حاجه انسى الهم ينساك واسمع للصوت حداك بوش ريزيست عارفين شي جات الشرق شي جات الغرب ايه وحنا جايين الحفره وحدين نصحوا هي قد والناس رواب عمرو العيون عمرو القهاوي راديو نطيلو تقرقي بالنار على غاش يما وخرجوني والحومه يما وعمرها تدياب Resistance
Okay, welcome back to Bold Like a Leopard. I want to welcome my guest, Jassem Tamim, is it? Hello? Can you hear me?
Should I put Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, welcome. I know this was short notice for a lot of the audience, but welcome. You're in the UK, I believe. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm in London, yeah.
So, the topic for today is Islam and, of course, some of the issues with, of course, Israel and the Jewish community and things like that. Although, it's kind of a topic that could morph into different avenues. So, Jassem, could you please tell us kind of your background? You don't have to give up too much private information, but how did you get to live in the United Kingdom? And what sort of journey have you gone through in terms of religion and your political outlook?
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for listening to me and for the invitation. I started practicing Islam when I was about 16, 17. I wasn't pushed to practice by my family, so it was like quite a nice journey for me to rediscover my religion and to understand it. I had to go to challenges that of modernity, living in the West, learning the correct Islam from the right sources, with the variety of schools of thought and stuff like that. So, alhamdulillah, I made my way through, and I'm here. So, regarding my background, I was born in Morocco, and I moved to live in Italy since early age, and I am in the UK since 2006, nearly 12 years now.
Okay, so
I work.
Yeah. So, question. So, is your first language is it Amazigh or is it Arabic, French? I know that they speak several languages in Morocco.
Yeah. My mother tongue is Arabic, a little bit Amazigh, not much, and I did study French when I was living in Morocco at early age, and I speak Italian as well.
Okay. So essentially, you've had this journey from, Morocco is kind of a country that, maybe, 50 years ago was undergoing a transition from, French control to being a independent country. And yet a lot of Moroccans continue to emigrate to France as well as other countries in Europe. Do you think that this has affected their connection to Islam? I think I was listening to another podcast with you, and you said that it causes a lot of people to strengthen their ties to Islam due to their interaction with the rest of society.
Yeah, I think when you live in a country of Islamic majority like Morocco, which is an open mind, open culture, we have we always mixed with other cultures, and we never felt separated from the rest of the world. There was always connection. People, even before the mass migration of the 90s and the 80s, there were always options of people going to study abroad and come back and getting mixed marriages. We had also missionaries coming from America or Europe to teach, to preach their religion. Yeah.
Okay.
So we always mixed with other cultures. When you live in as migrant, it's different because depend where you live. The country where I lived, which is Italy, it wasn't expected from us to be individuals. It was expected to be like a labor force for business people or whatever, just like a resource for the country. There was no. It's totally different from the UK. There's at that time there was no option for me to continue my higher education, to aspire to be like to finish my studies or something. If I told anyone I wanted to study Islam in university, they would just laugh at my face, So there's lack of culture related to knowing the other's culture. only people who study and finish the university degrees and stuff, they have much more connection with the rest of the world. But the population, they're just like nice people, but it's difficult to be a Muslim in that kind of environment.
So this is where? This is in Italy?
Yeah, in Italy, yeah.
Right, and in fact, today there is a little more of a hostility towards Islam in Italy due to the new government there. Do you feel that, if these governments in the past had kind of been more stringent on migration, they would have perhaps caused more of a change in Morocco, so less people would have had to migrate? Hello?
If people they didn't come to know about Islam to migrants, they would have came to know about it through social media.
Right.
Because migration, they just like speed up the contact between the diverse people. It's not because of migration Islam reached Europe.
Uh-huh.
When we arrived to Europe, Islam was already there. It was technically eradicated before we came. We're talking about Andalus, Spain. We're talking about Sicilia. We're talking about 100 mosques were transformed in churches in Sicily. So it's not like something new for Italy. It's just like, unfortunately, politicians, they try to win the argument. They try to sell their manifestos, and sometimes they don't have nothing to put on those manifestos because they don't have real solutions for the real problems. So they start talking about migration because there is a problem. There's like competition for jobs, competition for housing. There's change in the culture. Some people, they wake up like after 10 years, they realize that the city they lived in looks totally different. So when you sell to them this rhetoric of we will stop migration, yeah, you can get voted for now. But if you think about it, they even by stopping migration, bringing it to zero number, people who are already here, they will not just disappear. Just we are already in Europe. It's not like, I don't know, unless someone is talking about final solution like the Nazi style, but I don't think so.
Okay, so, and you yourself, you are kind of dealing also with an internal discussion, can I call it, within the Muslim community regarding the Jewish people and the Israelis. Can you tell us, like, what's your position? Was it like different before, and how has it affected your relationships with other Muslims in Britain?
Like most of Moroccan people, we were brought up to know a lot about Judaism. I mean, I hear a lot of stories from my grandmother and late grandmother about the Jewish people, and also from my father about the Holocaust. So I realized after I mixed with other people from other Muslim countries that there's a difference between Morocco and the rest of the Muslim world, because we kind of feel for us, the Jewish people living in Morocco was a loss. And it was like it was a traumatic loss. You can feel it until today in people. It's like if you go to visit any city of Morocco, they will tell you, look, Jewish people, they used to live here. They will show you the Mellah, and because we are proud of our history, joint history. So this affected me. It had a positive influence on my thinking today. But I went through like the process of radicalization that most of Muslims did go through when it comes to the question of Israel. We always been told lies about Israel, about Jewish state. We never heard the word Israel, the state, until recently. We used to use the word entity. We were only told the
Can you say that again? Because you're kind of cutting off. Can you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, I said we never called Israel the state of Israel. We used to hear in the news the Zionist entity.
Okay.
That's what we used to hear. So yes, but we were like kind of brought up blaming the Jew for all our problems, and obviously, so for me it was like a mixture between between joint history with the Jewish people of Morocco and also with what's happening in the Middle East. And it took me a lot of time to understand how things are working.
Right, and I remember, for example, there's a lot, like even today, there's a lot of discussion. I live in the U.S. My parents my mom passed away, but they're both Israeli, and I did serve in the Israeli army. And usually, when the Palestinians would refer to the Israelis, they wouldn't say Al Israeliyun. They would say Al Yehud or Al Sayuni.
Sahayna.
Yeah, I'll say yeah.
Sahayna.
Yeah, so it was pretty funny because then, but Al Sayuni, they almost never say. They almost always say Al Yahud,
Yehud.
and usually they a lot of the Western anti-Zionist people, the ones who are maybe like a Jeremy Corbyn type, or in the U.S. we have Chris Hedges. They'll say that anti-Zionism is separate from anti-Semitism or anti-Judaism. Do you have a perspective on that? Do you think that there's a real separation, or do you think that they're linked at the root?
I don't think there is any separation. Now I understand it better after I did my own research and I studied anti-Semitism. And I am also studying deeper Islam, not much Judaism, but I can read some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No, you can't differentiate because because if Israelis they were not Jew, there won't be this international reaction about the establishment of the Jewish state, and I don't have to struggle to prove it, because before Israel it was declared independent state, there was a British colony there. It was like under the British rule.
Right, the mandate.
We didn't have, So if it was only for the land of the religion or for the religion, even the British, they should have faced the same level of resistance, but this didn't happen. For Arabs living there, it was okay for them to be under the rule of the British, who are not religious. I think that more likely to be Christian. But when the rule of the British passed the flag to the rule of the Jewish people, the majority Jewish people, they refused it solely because you are Jew. That's what was refused. There's no other reason. Because it's not like a foreign country who occupied the land, or there's no other reason. Just because Israelis are Jewish, they've been rejected. So the project itself of getting the Jewish people their own state, it's Zionism, and you cannot differentiate between the two. You can't say, oh, I like Jewish people, I have a Jewish friend, but I don't like Zionists. It's just like saying, oh, I like Muslim people, I have Muslim friend, but I don't like you guys having your own holy site in Mecca or something like that, or start getting into the question of why people are not allowed to go to Mecca or stuff like that. You understand? It's just like, it's so obvious. When you hurt someone's feeling and keep telling you, look, you are hurting my feeling, and you keep telling them, no, you don't know what you are talking about. I know about your feelings. I am telling you, I'm not against Jew, I am against Zionists. But it's like every Jew is Zionist. Yes, every Jew is Zionist. So you have to get over it.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting. I live in the U.S. In the U.S., we have a very strong debate right now about freedom of speech. I like to say that you have the right to say whatever you want, even if it's hateful or, very derogatory towards people. But it doesn't mean that people can't just argue with you and prove that you're wrong. So I see a lot of people that, especially on one of the channels that I cooperate with, that have very derogatory opinions and jokes about Jews. And it's pretty surreal, because sometimes I'll share my content on that channel and they'll be like, well, that's that he makes some great points, and then like a week later I'll see them still making the same jokes. Usually it has, like, my stuff has nothing to do with Judaism, but I would say there's like so here's an idea that I have. I think that there is different reasons why people become hateful towards other groups of people. Let's say, for example, Jews, or against Polish people, whatever. So sometimes they have negative experiences with them, personal experiences, which is kind of understandable. So they apply those personal experiences to all the people in that group. And sometimes, there's a cultural trend that really forms their opinion, which is a little bit more about what you're talking about. And sometimes I think that they simply arrive at it because they read like very edgy literature and things like that make them feel different and make them feel like they're reaching the truth. So which one of them do you think is the more common one as far as hatred, racism in general, or anti-Semitism specifically, if you want to focus on that?
Can I add something?
Sure.
Can you? Yeah.
Can you turn? Do you have a light that you can turn on, because nobody can see you? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I say something about?
Sure.
It's just like in the beginning when we used to hear the Zionist entity and in the Arab world, but to be honest, whenever pay attention what the word meant, because it was so obvious that the hatred was directed to the Jew. The Jews, the Yehud, they occupy that country, and it was Arab country before, and which is not true. And if I give you the example of Islam in Europe, you hear a lot of politicians saying, "Oh, I haven't got nothing against Islam. My best friend is Muslim. My neighbor is Muslim. They are nice people. They are contributing." It's just like a lot of nonsense. What do you mean they are contributing? A person is a person. Even if they cannot contribute to economy, you can't just like weigh people based on how much they contributed to your country become rich. And if you are integrated Muslim, integration they mean if you go to the pub, if you don't practice Islam, then they accept you. Same thing for the Jewish people. They want the Jewish people to be the model they designed it for them. They want them to be bright people, good with economy, good with science, but they don't want them to have their own state. That's it. It's just anti-Semitism. That's how I explain it.
So I mean, you live in the United Kingdom. People talk about Jeremy Corbyn, anti-Semitism related to him. I've done a few videos where I give kind of analysis of it. And sometimes I think people do exaggerate when they talk about him, but then how many times can he do certain things before you start to see a pattern and, you just can't trust his word anymore? What's your personal, I mean, you've lived in the UK for 12 years. Has it changed since Mr. Corbyn became the leader of the Labour Party? And would you say that you think he actually feels negatively towards the Jews or just specifically Israel?
I don't know him in person, but what I heard and what I read about him, he relies a lot on the extremist wing. I think they're called Momentum or something.
Yeah.
But not only them. It's just like there is a grassroots in the Labour Party who support the fascist project of creating an Arabic state by slicing the land of Israel or splitting it in two. So there's a lot of support for that amongst his grassroots, and he cannot win any election without these people. So they are very extremist when it comes to Israel, and they are very extremist. They are very supportive to organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah, all these kind of things. So I don't know him as a person. I never had a conversation with him, so I cannot judge him. But I can judge from him as a leader. He's aspiring to become a leader by the help of extremists. So it's just like someone who is a supremacist and and get to power because racist people they voted them. So they are kind of responsible for that. They can't just like say, okay, I'm not anti-Semite. Yeah, but you've been voted by anti-Semites. So if you can't get rid of that kind of support, so it's better you accept that you are anti-Semite yourself as well.
All right, and I think there's a lot of debate over that, especially here in the U.S. We have Congresswoman Omar, who is from Somalia. Certainly, I don't like to focus on it too much. A lot of it is really, the media they magnify things, or they'll use her as a symbol of pride, or her opponents will use her as a symbol of what Islam really is. But I grew up. My mom, for example, she wasn't really. I mean, obviously she didn't love everybody, but she never really hated people by virtue of their religion. And of course, I've never held it against some. I know people from Pakistan, for example. Pakistan is an Islamic country, and I don't really care. Like, it's fine by me because I don't really feel that it affects me personally. Obviously, I have friends from India that feel differently. Some of them, so you have to deal with it differently though, because you do live in a society where Islam is, it has more of an effect. How has it affected you and your relations with your family and friends that you have opinions that are starting to skew a little more against the current?
I have big problems when it comes to my opinions related to Israel, because let me explain to you. I did build up trust with few friends and people that they know me from so many years, and they know my opinions. Alhamdulillah, they don't doubt about my sincerity, and they know that I cannot be bought. I don't have enough. I'm not aspiring to become a leader. I'm not running for elections. I know I don't get money from no one else except for my work, and so they know the details of my life, so they can't doubt of my sincerity when I'm talking. It's not like I'm an attention seeker or something. So this is a good point, but at the same time it's creating to them bigger problem. It's like they wish if I was they could label me somehow and they say, okay, he just lost his mind. They know I didn't have lost my mind, and some of them they start questioning their ideas as well, and some of them they agree with me in almost everything, but they still have some sort of feeling, because there are too much material online about abuse to human rights and stuff like that in the occupied territory of Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, occupied. When I say occupied, it's occupied by Hamas. I'm not saying. For me, it's Israeli territory occupied by a terroristic entity. So when they see these kind of pictures, and obviously they don't see what Hamas does on the other side, because it's not documented enough and it's not talked about enough. I think this is the challenge of the century now. We need to expose what Hamas does with much more efficiency. So for my small when it comes to my small family, alhamdulillah, I don't have any problem with my parents or my kids or my ex-partner. So yeah, that's it. It's like I have to be careful when it comes to work or to study. Then it's an environment, so I don't have any problem to express myself and my opinion. Obviously, I have to be careful with the language I'm using, because this is one of the teaching of the Prophet Muhammad. He taught us how to speak, to say the right word to the right people. You need to choose the way you talk to the person in an appropriate way. The freedom of speech doesn't mean that you have to be naive and just impose your ideas. You need also to choose the words. Like, if you are talking to a Jewish person, you have to talk to them in a certain way. If you're talking to atheistic person, you have to talk to them in a certain way. If you are talking to your friends, you have to talk to them in more open way. So it's about circumstances. So when I am in the academic environment now, doing my degree, or inshallah when I'll be doing my master later on, I don't have any problem to express my opinion clearly, academically, scientifically, about why Israel is the victim, is not the aggressor. And also, I'm happy to be challenged. Please, if you can prove that I'm wrong, just do it. But just if you can talk to me like I have just to keep quiet and listen, or have to believe your propaganda. I don't take propaganda. I just only talk about facts. And the same thing about this is my rule in life, even about Islam. If anyone can prove to me that I am following a false prophet, just please be my guest. Let me know. I'm not against. I'm not closing the door to no one. But obviously, I close the door when it gets to the abuse and threats and stuff like that. So I don't listen.
Right, because sometimes people who are so opinionated that they can't really listen, they resort to just heaping abuse on other people and trying to get them to say something that they don't mean. So I understand what you're talking about. I actually had an example of that last week with somebody reacting to a different interview of mine. And another question, what was the question that I just had? So, we're talking a lot about the religious issues, Islam and, dealing with the West. And I understand you called into Majid Nawaz's show. And I've listened to Mr. Nawaz for a couple years off and on. And, I certainly disagree with him about Brexit, but I think that he's certainly, he's created an audience of people who are open-minded and do want to have debate. Is it difficult for people like that within the Muslim community to, socialize and be seen as truly a part of it? Because obviously you have other people in the UK, I don't know if I should mention their name, who are trying to get the Muslim community to be much more separate from British society.
When it comes to open-minded, secular Muslims who are outspoken, or someone like Majid Nawaz who have really an amazing experience in life and also professional experience. He speaks from knowledge. Obviously, he gets challenged a lot because he publicly said to be not a practicing Muslim. And for all Muslims, a non-practicing Muslim is in fact a non-Muslim. It's not because Islam is not a race. So for me, like my position, like I don't judge no one's fate. Only Allah will finalize who is who.
Mm-hmm.
But it's difficult to sell this idea to everyone, because when someone come out and tell you I'm not practicing Islam, and we have clear hadiths and clear evidence from the Quran that says that a non-practicing Muslim is practically a non-Muslim, or like a Muslim with suspended effect. So that's a big problem. I think if he kept it for himself, I don't know. I'm not in position to advise him. I'm just like hypothesizing someone. If you keep it if you're not practicing and you aim to do good and to communicate with people, with Muslim, try to not to make it public, because once you make it public, you just label yourself out. Just like whatever you say, it will be okay. They will listen to you as they will listen to non-Muslim. They won't listen to you like one of them.
Yeah, their skepticism is automatically heightened because they now see.
Yeah, and also, especially when you're successful. Like for me, I haven't got nothing to lose, because, alhamdulillah, I'm just like ordinary person. I have a job, I have a family, I have a life. So as I say, I'm not aspiring to. So I can say whatever I want. They're just like they can't like you're talking. If you remember Richard Rayleigh, they say boycott Richard Rayleigh. No one can say boycott Jassem Tamim. What's going to happen if you boycott me? Nothing. It's like, so for them, for the successful people, like someone who is successful like Majid Nawaz, is difficult, because they will target you. They will say, okay, you are selling your ideas. You are cashing out of that. It's like, it's really extremely difficult. May Allah help him in what he does. Having said that, I haven't got no doubt about his sincerity. I really respect him. I disagree with him in a lot about the doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to doctrinal point, I disagree with him totally with his position against the hijab, his position against a lot of things. So obviously he's not against the hijab. He just like support everyone's freedom to do whatever they want.
Choice.
Yeah, but I have same stance like him with some modifications. Like for me, in my family, I have hijab and no hijab and niqab. I have three of them. My oldest daughter, she doesn't wear hijab. My other one, she does wear it. I have a niece who wears niqab. So for me, when I speak with my daughter about this, if she asks me what is the position of Islam about hijab, I'll tell her, yeah, hijab is compulsory for a Muslim woman. But the choice to be Muslim or not to be Muslim is a choice. It's free. You understand?
Okay. Yeah.
It's just like you are entering a club. You subscribe to that club, or you want to play cricket. If you don't go to play cricket or play football, you have to dress in a certain way. If you don't want to dress in that way, you won't get. It's like, it's just as simple. So the rules are strict, but the choice to get in or get out is open. So that's the way I try to. When it comes to Majid Nawaz, he tried to justify his position, to say that this is Islamism, this is the politician, and this I think this is what makes him lot of Muslims, they attack him and they don't even listen to what he says. But many of them, they do listen, because his arguments are strong. He have base to what he says. He's talking from knowledge, so you cannot not listen to him.
All right, and the other question I was going to ask, and I was hoping there would be some questions from the chat, but I don't see any. But so we discussed a little bit about the, obviously Gaza and Israel and the Palestinian Authority. So my understanding is that you're not a big fan of the cause of Palestine, but we're still talking about a population. What is it? I think at least 5 million people over there they define themselves as Palestinian Arabs. So what would you say would be your your vision of what they should do? Because unfortunately, a lot of them, they are under governments, whether it is the Fatah government in the West Bank, or in Gaza you have the Hamas government. It's not like they can go out to the town square and give a suggestion, hey, stop stealing our stuff, or maybe give us more choices in life. Maybe stop being so corrupt. What would be your advice to, in terms of that conflict, or is it something that you don't think that there's an answer to?
I think it's not like there's a problem who doesn't have a solution is not a problem in the first place. So because because it is because there are solutions for the problem. If we get to if we call things with their name, if we keep calling it second state or project or say or two-state
solution.
Two-state solution. If we keep these are lies. When you keep telling your kids that there is a Santa Claus, they will keep believing there is Santa Claus. When you tell them, look, there's no Santa Claus, it's just me buying the gifts and putting them under the tree, then they will grow up understanding that it's dad who is buying the gift. There's no Santa Claus. So if you keep telling people you will have a second state, when you know for a fact that they cannot have the second state, because it's just like you can just like it's just like it's not gonna happen. So these people are stateless. They were made stateless by non-choice of theirs. So I think that people they should be given the right to choose what they want. They want to be Israeli citizens, or they want to be citizens of another country, because the whole world need to take the burden of this, because we all created this problem. Europe, America, Canada, Africa, Russia, everyone created this problem. It's not only the Arab fascists, or the Arabs who are not fascist, or Muslim terrorists, or Muslim who are not terrorists, or Jewish everyone is responsible. So everyone has to join together and find a solution. A solution, and we need to give to these people the choice to choose which country they want to be citizen of. You want to live in Israel? As a citizen of Israel, you must be welcome. And there should be some sort of cooling period when it comes to voting, because you cannot give the right to vote in politics to someone who wanted to destroy Israel until the week before. You understand? So you need to give to people time to adapt and understand how things work, and to accept each other, to mix with Jewish people, and to get this fascist propaganda out of their chest. Once you get that point, you don't want to be citizen of Israel, you can be citizen of another country. Germany took 1 million people at once, because and that was a very clever move of Angela Merkel, because if she haven't done that, we'll be talking about IS today, because she opened the border for 1 million people. There were other 3 million people who went to Turkey, so IS they had no one to rule over.
So are you saying did you agree with Merkel's decision, or would you say was a bad decision?
No, I think it was perfect. It was a bad decision from political point of view, but it was needed. There was no other solution. If she didn't open the doors for 1 million migrants, refugees, there will be still IS today. IS was destroyed just because there was no people to govern. There was no population. Everyone left, or most of people are left who could. So the same thing should happen for Hamas as well. We need to open the door of Gaza, let people out who wants to go out. And those who doesn't want to go out, they can stay in, and they can live under another citizenship as residents. If you have any emotional problem of being Israeli, I'm not saying, I am trying just to be understandable towards everyone. It's like, I understand if you don't want to be Israeli, you want to be French national, but you love your land so much and you can live as a resident in Israel with a French passport, You live in Israel with French passport, Italian passport, British passport, whichever nationality you choose. And the other countries, they must be obliged to grant citizenship to these people. You cannot ask them go and live in a refugee camp, because that's why they don't leave. That's why they're not going nowhere, because they know what they can expect. They see what's happening to Palestinians living in Lebanon, which
Right.
is the real apartheid.
So I mean, I see a lot of the points you're making, but the fact of the matter is, I used to work with somebody from Germany. I know some people from not from France, but from Holland. And the fact is that those countries are struggling at the moment to sustain some of these populations. Their own standard of living is falling, and they have to look after the welfare of the people that live there already, including some of these migrants from Turkey and Iran and places like that. So wouldn't you say that the best solution would be for, Egypt, I think, is trying its best to deal with the crisis in Gaza. Wouldn't you say that the best solution would be for Israel, Egypt, Jordan, countries like that to try, if you're not going to create a second state, for them to manage the situation and try to give the Palestinians as much autonomy as possible?
I think before you get to that point, because that could happen only. Firstly, I don't agree. I think the integrity of Israel is the red line.
Mm-hmm.
Jewish people, they don't deserve that we do this to them after 60 or 70 years that they've been struggling to build their state, and we come to them and just like mess up. It's not a game that you just go and change the cards on the table.
Okay.
A state is like people's life. You can just go. People died for those borders. You can just come and change them today. You understand? It's just so it is a real problem. You need to give people a chance to choose what they want. Now we are debating. We are debating about the future of millions of people with war criminals and terrorists and corrupt people. We have in the West Bank, we have a mafia of people who are selling, who are doing business with Israel, and then they are declaring Israel occupying country, and we have another group in Gaza who are war criminal terrorists. I don't want to go and say everything I believe, I feel about them. I keep it for myself because I'm trying to be polite.
Okay.
So you can't discuss with these people the future of other people, of like 2-3 million people. You can't do that.
Right. And what I meant was,
this is not democracy. This is not democracy. You need to get people to choose what they want.
So I don't think it's practical. The Hamas movement calls itself the Islamic Resistance Movement. That's what Hamas means, the Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya. So, I don't think that they're really looking to come to a compromise anyway. So that's not really what I meant. What I'm saying is that the fact is that we can't have people just moving all around the world all the time. It's like,
why? I think we need to take a. It's not everyone will move,
right,
and no one will be forced to move.
So here's my argument. So hold on. So when I read, let's ignore, for example, just Israel and the Palestinians. When you look at what happened when India and Pakistan were split apart, the British thought it would be, a really easy situation that you would have all of the Hindus would move from the Pakistan side to the Indian side, and then vice versa, all the Muslims would move to Pakistan. But in the end, millions of people did die. There was a lot of violence during the partition of India. The same sort of thing happened after World War I with the Greeks and the Turks. And my thing is this, okay? I don't think that we can prevent every war, but I don't think we should try to think that moving people around will prevent bloodshed, because it's caused bloodshed in a number of these countries. It's done so in the ones that I mentioned, for example. People thought it would be pretty easy to do this ethnic separation, and in the end, it was actually pretty bloody.
But what you said now, it's a little bit argument about what you are trying to make me accept. You are saying that because we moved the Muslim from India we created the Pakistan, we moved them to. This is exactly what what we are talking about is like you are not we are not trying to separate people based on their ethnicity,
Right.
like Muslim one side and Jewish on one side, but we are trying to put them together by force.
Okay.
It's just the same. So whether you separate them or you force them to live together, you are still forcing them somehow. What I'm saying is like give people the chance to choose. After those who doesn't want to choose or refuse to choose, then you will find the solution how to deal with them. But we are talking about by opening the doors of migration of voluntary resettlement elsewhere, you will have at least 50% of people leaving that place because people they aspire to have a normal life. And I'm not comparing Arabs, stateless Arabs of Israel with migrants who went to Germany, because those stateless Arabs of Israel, they are qualified people, they are respectable people, they never created any problem in any of the countries they've been to. They've been everywhere in the world. Have you ever heard about a Palestinian stateless Arab from Israel who created a problem? A part of the terrorist one? I'm talking about normal people, those who they're all professional, they're all highly educated, they will be an addition to any country who accept them.
I think there's so what you're saying is, I agree with some of it because I work, I'm an engineer. There's certainly plenty of Palestinian engineers that I've worked with, but at the same time, in some of these countries where there are large Palestinian populations, for example, in Jordan and in Lebanon, there have been long-term civil disorders and even wars because of it. So I think we're talking about two different things there. There's a lot of Palestinian people that do want to have successful careers and raise children and sustain their families and things like that. So I don't know if the question is the same as what you're talking about.
Can I say something? You just made the example of Jordan or Lebanon.
Yes.
If you move people to live in refugee camps as a citizen of Series C or B or even Z or X, you don't give them the right to work, they will never be naturalized. They will never get Lebanese passport or Jordan passport. They don't have a right to travel abroad. They don't have no. Obviously, they will turn. You are creating another another form of terrorism, another form of oppression. But if you move them to countries like here, like UK, or where a person, once you get your document cleared, then you become equal right with the citizen who was born and lived all their life in that country. You can have the same healthcare, same access to education. You can compete for the same jobs. They will be. It's totally different. You cannot compare the situation in Jordan, the Palestinian refugees in Jordan, with what I'm talking about. I'm talking about voluntary resettlement, like a mega project that everyone comes together. We are not talking about 3 million people. If they split all over the world, there will be like 2,000-3,000 going to every country or something. Some of them they have already relatives as well.
There's a question from the audience. So one of my subscribers is it's Kishwa Bishin. She's asking, how can you let in people who were indoctrinated into hatred to Jews from the early age? I would add to that, obviously some people do adapt. You seem to have adapted well. Other people don't. In some countries like Sweden, they just aren't. The Swedish government isn't trying to get a lot of the migrants to adapt. So in reality, she's saying some of these attitudes are attitudes that are taught from a very young age, and how do you get those things to be abandoned?
I think once I understand. Thank her for the question, and I understand it's not. I'm not an expert. Maybe I'm wrong in 60% of what I'm saying because I don't have access to all the data.
Okay.
But the idea that I'm proposing, it's just like a start. You can work on it and modify it. Like countries, they can choose who to take and who to not. For example, let's say if we ask Palestinians to choose where they want to go, we can give them like 3 options. Option 1, option 2, option 3, preferences. And the countries, they can go and do their security clearances, and they can choose to take the people they want. But let's talk from a legal point of view today. Any Palestinian who have a chance to arrive to any port in the world, they will be granted asylum automatically. You can't even stop them from getting in.
Seriously, you're saying that's the way it is today?
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
Because
okay,
now,
yeah.
if anyone find a way to get it to America now from
Yeah.
Mexico, you can't stop them from getting in anyway.
That's
So it's not
true.
like I'm
That's
proposing
absolutely
something
true.
new.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm proposing something new. I'm just telling you, just like we need to look in. It's a tool in our hand. We need to look how to use it best. And I trust my brothers and sisters in Gaza that once you give them the chance to build another life, better life, they will forget the past. They will move on. Within 1 or 2 generations, this problem will be over, inshallah.
Right, and I think I have to disagree with you there because I think every society is like kind of different. I mean, obviously Moroccan society is different from Syrian society. My mother's family came from Iraq, and I have a lot of friends from Egypt and a lot of friends from Lebanon. Those two societies, there's similarities, but there's very very clear cultural differences. So I think like really the society would have to change from within because people whose families have this sort of this passed on tradition that they took our land and we're going to take it back, and then there's other even more explicitly extreme views that they would have. I don't think that that it's as easy as you're making it out to be. I know that there's some exceptions. I work with some people that are absolutely normal from either Palestinian areas or from other parts of the Muslim world, but I think really it's dependent both on the individual and on the social units that people are in. If you start having people go to some of these masjids in Europe that are radicalizing people, you could have the opposite effect. Wouldn't you say that that's kind of a hazard as well?
Can I say that masjid that radicalized people, with due respect, is a myth?
Okay.
Because there isn't mosques as establishment that radicalize people. There are people who end up in the radars of secret services, and they are known to be meeting in certain place or praying in certain place for pure geographical or ideological reason. It's not like it's just like me saying that the guy who did the attack of New Zealand, I'm just go to the pub where he used to go before and say, okay, this pub radicalized him. No, it doesn't work that way. It's just like a place where we meet. This is something very, very important. A mosque is an empty building. I mean, I'm sure you've been in a mosque before. There's nothing that happens in the mosque. It's just like a prayer. There are courses and marriages and things going on because of the West, because we don't have like a religious establishment like in Muslim countries. So the mosque turned to be a place of something more than worship. But no one will risk close, because Muslims are not stupid, including the terrorist ones. They know that they are under the radars of the secret services. They know there are informants in every mosque. The mosque is amazing. It's an amazing place. In every mosque, you will find at least 5 to 6 secret services working at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's like you will find the Moroccan secret services, you will find the Egyptian secret services, you will find the secret services of the country where the mosque is. So it's not a place you go just there radicalize people. People, they get radicalized on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and online. This is where the radicalization is taking place.
So what's the solution to that in your opinion?
The solution to that is to counter radicalization. Radicalization is an ideological movement, is a teaching. I know it's a deadly teaching. I know it's a dead cult, but we need to counter it with the correct teaching. I'll give you the example of the medicine. When the traditional medicine spread in a society, like you go to some African countries, people, they try to find cure using remedies, natural remedies or sorcery or something like that. If you offer the population proper healthcare, they will turn away from that casual healthcare that harm them.
Okay.
So if you offer to Muslim population proper Islamic education, like the one I'm following now, because it's accredited by the British government. So if you offer them accredited education, they will turn to that education. They will leave the radicalization. But the point is, like, what's happened is, like, unlike me, I went to Islam by my own choice. My dad never forced me to do anything. It's just like, I know I was Muslim, but he never really checked on me, say if I was praying or was doing this and that. you have people who came to this country like 50, 40 years ago. They came to this country solely because they were looking for a better life, or because they came from ex-colonies, so they were offered jobs and they came here. These people, most of them, they had no religious education.
Hmm.
When they lived here, they bought houses and they settled here. They start having kids. They start feeling the need to have their own mosque, their own worship place, because when you're close to death, you start thinking about God. So they started investing some of their saving in creating an Islamic environment. They start having kids. These kids, they were born to parents who don't have any Islamic knowledge. So there is no Islamic knowledge at home. There is no Islamic knowledge at school. There is no Islamic knowledge at the mosque because it's not an Islamic country. So the people the first, second, and third generation of Muslim born in Britain. I'll talk about Britain because this is where I live. The first, second, and third generation, they start looking for their identity because they are brown, they are black, they are different. You understand? And when you start being rejected from your society, you start looking for your roots. Just like a Jewish people will start looking for their roots when they live somewhere else. So when they're looking for their roots, there is no one to turn to. So this is where the radicalization start happening. If we give them the official education, if we accept them as a Muslim, this like Britain is doing a lot in this sense. British government, they accept you for who you are. They know you are Sikh, they know you are Hindu, they are Muslim, they are not Jew. There's acceptance, political acceptance for the diversity. In other countries, there's no political acceptance for the diversity. They accept you to change. They see you as a taxpayer. Like in France, they want you to believe in the Republic. When most of French white people themselves, they don't even believe in that. So it's about the policies. It can be done, but we need to acknowledge where the problem is. In the UK, we have an amazing educational, both official and private religious education system. It's very, very advanced now. If you go to East London, you will be surprised that in some areas in the same street you will find more schools that in my hometown in Morocco, teaching the Quran, the Arabic, and we need to open. I think we need to push for the British government to do even more to give licenses to these schools. And I know people, they don't like their taxes to be spent in religion, but when you spend your tax in religion, that saves your life. It's just like this, you will just save that money that you will be spending secret services anyway. I mean, whether you spend money to educate them, when they are early age, you spend it's going to cost you like £50 a year per head. When you go and put surveillance on them, when they become radicalized, it's going to cost you £50,000 per head. So it's a matter of calculation as well. I think thank you very much for having me, and just I'm on Twitter, which is at Jassem Tamim. Uh, you can contact me on Twitter, and I'm looking forward to learn from others, and to challenge my opinions, because I'm looking forward to learn. I'm a seeker of knowledge. I'm not saying that everything. I apologize if I say anything wrong. It was not intentionally. It was, and yeah, just looking forward to hear from anyone who wants to correct me in something that I said that they don't believe correct, or we can discuss it further, inshallah. On Twitter, it's my preferred communication tool. Thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you very much.